Good day, everyone. My name is Rich Chester, and I'm the Director of Business Intelligence at LPA Software Solutions. It's my pleasure to be with you today, talk to you about what's new in the IBM Cognos Analytics release 11.1.4, otherwise known as version 11.1 R4. Today's webinar, like all our webinars, is being recorded, and you can pick up any previously recorded webinar from our website, www.lpa.com, or off of our YouTube channel. Now there you're going to find our complete What's New in Cognos Analytics library, both feature and function reviews by release, like today's webinar, as well as some deep dives into topics like reporting and dashboards and cubes and so on. You'll also find some recordings from our other practice areas, like our financial performance management practice, talking about topics in the TM1 and planning analytics space, or from our advanced analytics practice, talking about predictive analytics, spatial analytics, Watson Studio, and so on. And from our information management practice, talking about information architecture topics such as master data management, ETL, and more. We hope that this is a valuable resource for your team as you move along your analytics journey. And while on that journey, perhaps you might find you need some help. And if so, LPA would be proud to earn your business. In my area, the business intelligence practice, the kinds of services that we offer include upgrades and migrations, moving you along through the IBM releases from 8 to 10 and into 11, even from Cognos Series 7, if that's your need, or from non-IBM technologies, converting those over to IBM Cognos Analytics. Perhaps you'd like to outsource some or all of the care and feeding of your Cognos Analytics environment. If that sounds valuable, we have a complete list of managed services to help offload the management and, if you will, day-to-day care and feeding of Cognos Analytics so that you can focus your resources on more value-added tasks. Perhaps you've just fallen behind on the list of reporting and analytic outputs that you need. You just need a team of folks that can focus on writing reports and dashboards for you. I have a team in Buffalo, New York that specializes in rapidly and accurately creating reports using Cognos Analytics. Perhaps your system isn't running as fast as you think it should, or you're having some specific problems that you're struggling to find the root cause for. Perhaps an LPA health check would be of value, where we could come in and validate your environment per best practices, looking for common issues and errors, looking for opportunities to improve performance, improve scalability, improve reliability. Those engagements end with a written document with both the low-hanging fruit, if you will, the easy things to implement that will give you some improvements, as well as some of the more complex and strategic changes you may wish to make. And some folks actually leverage this health check notion on their current version before they upgrade, so that when they upgrade, they know they're working on a solid foundation. And then finally, perhaps you'll find that with all of the new features and functions that are contained in Cognos Analytics, you would like some help training your organization or even training your trainers. LPA has our own collection of Cognos Analytics specific training materials, including things like as simple as report authoring and advanced authoring, dimensional authoring, active reports, but also covering all of the new features, dashboards, data modules, data sets, and so on. And again, we would be very proud to earn your business and help you in your business intelligence and Cognos Analytics journey. Now let's talk about what's new in Cognos Analytics version 11.1.4. Throughout the webinar, I would encourage you to submit your questions using the chat feature on the WebEx. I will attempt to answer as many questions at the end of today's session as I can, time permitting. But any question you submit, whether it's answered while we're together or not, I will answer via email after the webinar is over. So please submit them, and I apologize in advance if I don't get to your question, quote unquote, on the air, but I promise I will absolutely answer all the questions you submit. Our agenda today is really a feature and function review of the new capabilities that are contained in the R4 release. The user interface changes, some terrific updates to the assistant, A bunch of updates in dashboards and stories. Explorations has gotten a couple of key improvements, as has reporting. Data modules actually has 4 or 5 different new capabilities, and there have been some changes in the administration area as well. I will do as many demos as I can fit, and I'll interleave those as we talk about different topics. And then at the end, as I said, Q&A, time allowing. Let's start out by noting that the welcome screen has been redesigned in the R4 release. The top of the screen now is really where what they call the welcome part of the welcome page. And it gives you easy access to quick tour videos, a catalog of examples of how-tos, as well as a description of the samples that come with your Cognos Analytics environment. Now, that top half, you can toggle off. You might notice from the screenshot here, in the top right corner, there's a show welcome switch that will toggle off that top part. Below that welcome part is your list of recent objects. And there's been a change there as well in terms of how you can view those objects as boxes or in a list. So I'll show you that in a moment. In addition, at the very top, and you can see this in the screenshot, at the very top of the screen, there are now alerts that can be presented. Now, these alerts, a bunch of them come from IBM. So whenever you get into your 11.1.4 environment and you hit a new tool, you open a new dashboard, you edit a report, you're going to see a banner from IBM with easy access to information about what has changed since the last release. In addition, you can define a banner that will display when folks log in, a quote-unquote maintenance alert that you can add to the system if you wish. And I'll show you how to do that. So actually, I'm going to jump out of the tool. I'm going to flip over here to Cognos, and I'm going to go ahead and log in. And let's just take a look at that new welcome screen. So again, at the top of the welcome screen, we've got easy access to assets that are designed really to help your users be self-sufficient and do some self-learning. If you wish, or if the user wishes, they can turn off that welcome information by just ticking that switch. Now, when you do that, that's remembered. So the next time that I log in, I won't have the welcome part at the top. All I'll have access to is the recent list. Now, the recent list that's being shown now is very similar in look to how it looked in previous releases. It's still changed slightly, but it's pretty much the same look. And again, you need to click on your action button in order to see the different actions that are available if you want to edit, you want to run, you want to open, and so on, whatever the asset is. But I really like this other option here, this list view option, where the type of object is very clear and easy. I have a scrollable list of the last 20 objects that I have touched. And again, I still have my action menu available to me with the identical functionality as before. But I am finding that I like this option. So your users will have options. They can look at the tiles, and they could also switch to list view. And again, once you've switched your view, it is remembered for that user. So the next time they log in, their preferred view is the view that will come up. So those are the differences on the welcome screen. Now let me show you what I mean by these built-in alerts. I'm going to create a new report, and you'll notice right at the top, because I'm not actually going to create a new report, I just really wanted to show you that the alerts pop up. So this is the alert that's to read more about what's happening in reporting. Click more info, which will launch you into an IBM site filled with demonstrations around the new features. So this comes up automatically when you upgrade to 11.1.4 and your users log in. They're going to get these alerts. You'll notice there's a dismiss button. So if you have read the alert and you no longer need to be reminded of that, you can click dismiss. Let me cancel out of this, and I'll show you, for example, if I do a new data module, right? Let me just pick a source quickly. I believe it'll come up right there. See, you'll get these alerts. Now, these are built in by IBM as part of the new release. Once your users hit dismiss, they go away, and they won't come back. I have not at least found myself any way to say bring back those alerts. But there's another kind of alert, and this is an alert that your Cognos administrator can add. So if you wish, there's certainly no requirement that you do this, but if you wish, your Cognos administrator can go to Manage, Configuration, and in the System area under Advanced Settings, they can enter a key, and that key is in the Managing Cognos Analytics documentation. So if you're looking for the documentation on this, you're going to want to find online the manual called Managing Cognos Analytics. And the key is glass banner message. Now once you, whoops, you got to spell it right. Once you put that in and you click over into value, if you have a message already, the message that's there will show up. Don't let the narrowness of the value area fool you. You can type in a rather long string. But what you're going to type in here is a maintenance alert. Let me show you what I mean. So I've put that in, glass banner message. I'm going to hit apply. I'll get a friendly message that says my configuration settings have been updated. And now, whenever anyone logs in, including myself, they're going to see a maintenance alert banner. So let me jump in and show you my maintenance alert banner at the top of the screen. So you see it's labeled maintenance, and there you have exactly what I typed in. Now this will stay and will come up every time a user logs in. So once I hit dismiss here, you see if I log off and log back in, it will come back. So this maintenance alert is going to be visible to your users until such time as you go back and remove it from the configuration. Once I've hit dismiss for the session, I won't see it again. But when I log off and log back in, I will. To remove it, Sunday has come and gone and you no longer need that maintenance alert when people log in. You go back to your configuration area and you would enter that key one more time. When you tab over, you see you now have the message. You just remove what's there and hit apply, and now you will not see an alert again until you enter a value for that key. So a couple of interesting things about the user interface changing. The welcome screen, as well as the ability now to have your own maintenance alerts, in addition to those pre-built alerts that come with the release automatically. In terms of the Augmented Intelligence Assistant, and remember this is the assistant that comes up whenever you create a dashboard, a story, or an exploration, you get an assistant button. They've added some additional features. Now in release 11.1.3, you may recall that they added a set of keywords, create dashboard. So if you had a collection of data in context, and the data in context, just so you know, it's always shown at the top of the assistant panel. So whatever data you have in context, if you said create dashboard, it would present you a dashboard with tabs, one tab per measure, generally speaking, in the data source. And then you could tweak that and give it, you could change the widget, you could delete widgets if you wanted, you could just modify them slightly, you could move them around, but it gave you a head start using advanced analytics on building a dashboard from the data source in context. This feature in 11.1.4 really lets you provide more context before the new dashboard is created by searching for certain data. So in the screenshot here, I'm searching for revenue by product line and year. It found revenue by product line and year, and right below the suggested visualizations, there's now this new hyperlink that you can click, create dashboard from the charts, and you'll get a dashboard focused on the data that was relevant to, included in and relevant to, or related to, if you will, the data from your previous search. So we'll do an example of that in just a second. One of the other things that has happened in the assistant is it's a lot more filter friendly. I can ask for things like show me the top 10 products by revenue year over year, and those are understood, those filters. In 11.1.4, one of the great new filter features is I can actually reference values in the interaction, the statement, the questions that I type into the assistant. Let me show you what I mean in an example here. Let me go ahead and go back to Cognos here, and I'm going to create a new dashboard. And the template doesn't matter, because what I really want to get at is a set of data, which I will add now. Out here in samples, I have a simple data module called historical sales data. And then I'm going to open the assistant. Now, because I added that as my data source to the dashboard, that data defaults as the context for the data when I am interacting with the assistant. So I'm going to first show you the context dashboard by searching for some data and then creating a dashboard based on the search results. So I'm going to type in show revenue, and you see it starts to give me some type ahead things, which I really like because it lets me know that I'm sort of on the right track. It's kind of understanding me as I go. So I'll do a simple one, show revenue by country, right? I'll hit enter, and it's going to present me with revenue by country. First, it's going to use the historical sales data, and if it can find some matches there to my statement, it's going to present them like it just did. It also says, hey, in addition to historical sales data, I found these other data sources you have access to where I could actually answer this same question. So you do have the option to search the other data sources if you wish. And that's not 11.1.4 features, that's assistant features that and IBM's been building and building and building on these features release by release. But I've got a collection of data I like so well, I'd like to create a dashboard related to the results that were found, this revenue by country region. So I'm going to click Create Dashboard from the charts. When I do that, you see it drops a tab into my dashboard, and it presents me with a bunch of visualizations related to my original search. So certainly, the revenue was a major focus, right? For me, it was revenue by country region that I typed in. So revenue, is everywhere, right? In this case, revenue and planned revenue. In this chart, here's quantity and revenue year over year. I've got a nice area chart here. I've got one of the advanced charts here showing me the different drivers, those pieces of historical sales data that seem to have a predictive strength to predict the outcome of revenue. And then also, it looks like a multi-layer map. Revenue for country on the region layer and quantity for country, since quantity and revenue are highly related as points. So that's if you will, a context-driven dashboard based on my search that resulted in some visualizations. So that's sort of part one of the two changes that are in 11.1.4 for the assistant. Let me show you another one. I'm going to just add some space here so I can drag the visualization in after I search for it. I'm going to type in a question along these lines. You might have noticed that Switzerland is really hot over in Europe. It's my biggest revenue country. So let's say I want to find out more about Switzerland and put it on this tab. So here in my question, I'm going to write, and I'll just make it really simple, show revenue by product line for Switzerland, and hit enter. And it's going to bring up a collection of charts, and these charts, let me just add one here to my dashboard, and let me expand it so you can see. This chart has a local filter on Switzerland. So it understood that when I said do it for Switzerland, that Switzerland was a country and that I wanted it to filter the resulting visualizations from my search by that country. And so that's exactly what it did. And it looks like my friends in Switzerland are all about the personal accessories, at least in this data set. So those are two examples of some continued improvements in the augmented assistant, the AI assistant, the assistant, whatever you want to call it. And again, this assistant button comes up whenever you're working in a dashboard, in a in a dashboard, in a story, or in an exploration. And you see how it's getting to the point where really I can pick some data and just type in some questions and build my dashboard. And I don't even have to pick data first, since it's going to search my data to try to answer those questions, in addition to looking at any data in context. So those are the assistant changes. Dashboards, a number of changes in dashboards. Now, I'm not going to deep dive into them in the slides because I want some time to present them to you, but I want to go over them just a smidge. So the list of highlights of the changes that happened in dashboards. First, this whole notion of custom visualizations. Now, IBM has been talking about this feature for quite some time, to be honest, and the feature goes like this. I can incorporate my own visualizations into Cognos 11. You might recall in Cognos 10, you could extend the visualization library using viz.json. But when Cognos 11 came out and we got the new visualization libraries, we never really got any tools to do that same sort of thing in the 11 world. Well, now we have them. So I will not do a complete demonstration there because it is coding, and as riveting as having me type in JavaScript would probably be, I don't think that's a really good use of our time together. So I'll talk you through the process, and I'll show you a result, but I'm not going to code a visualization for you today. Forecasting in time-based bar charts, column charts, and line charts. I'll show you an example, but that is a terrific new feature that is going to use advanced algorithms to try to plot for you future periods in time based on the data that you are presenting in a visualization, so that you can see the by some high degree of confidence what the future may hold. There are some improvements in visualization legends that we'll talk through. There's a couple of new visualizations. I think I'll have time to demonstrate at least one of those for you. And there have been some improvements to tabular data, that's crosstabs and tables, in your dashboard world. Now, I do have a slide on each of those. I'm not going to read you everything in the slides, but I do want you to see the slides. And if you're a person who takes screenshots during my webinars, you feel free to take a screenshot. Or, by the way, you can also just enter in the WebEx that you would like a copy of the slides, and we'll provide you the actual slides, so no problem with that. So custom visualizations does require that you can code, and it does require a little bit of setup. Setup that I actually did yesterday, and it took me about 20 minutes to install the development environment. And there are there's great documentation in the Visualization Developer Guide, which you can download from the web. It tells you exactly what to do, how to install it, where to get the pieces parts. It also has some great tutorials, by the by, that takes you through actually creating a visualization from scratch. There's a way for you, once you have built a visualization, to actually try it out in a dashboard before you release it to everyone. So, there's a way for you to package and upload your new visualization and make it available to folks, but you can test it before you do that through the tool as well, which is very useful, I think, especially for those of us who don't use a dev test prod approach to Cognos. This gives me a chance to do dev and test before I go to prod, even in a single environment. So we'll take a good look at that. We'll take a look at forecasting. Forecasting is very complex mathematically, but very simple in a user interface perspective in the tool. So we'll start. I have a chart that has some data plotted by day. We'll turn on the forecast. We'll take a quick gander at the 4 options you have, and we'll talk a little bit more about how it works when we get there. There are a couple of rules. You can't have a lot of missing data. So, if you have a bunch of missing days in your data, it may tell you there's too many missing days to interpolate on the data. You have to have at least 5 data points, or the forecasting algorithm simply won't work. You get to set things like how many periods out. There's an auto setting, but you can set how many periods if you want to specify that. Maybe the last couple of periods are not good indicators and you want to omit them. Or perhaps, the current month is not a good thing to include in the algorithm because we're halfway through the current month. So we can tell Cognos to ignore a certain number of periods. We can set a confidence level. I want to see a forecast where the algorithm has spit out a number that will fall between the upper and lower boundaries, which I can see, by the way, when I look at the forecast, what those upper and lower boundaries are at some degree of confidence. The default's 95% of confidence. And then there's also this notion of seasonality. There's an auto setting, which is, I have to say, by and large, what I've been using, where it examines the data and it will detect seasonality and therefore include that seasonality in the forecast. So a lot of stuff going on, but to access it for us as end users is literally a couple of clicks. So we'll do an example of that. Legends have moved. So by default, legends are going to go to the top of the visualizations now, and the area that the legend takes up can be expanded or shrunk by clicking on these parallel lines and dragging. So you can adjust the amount of space the legend is taking up now. And if you narrow it up too much, scroll bars will automatically appear so you can scroll through the legend. So the legend will become scrollable. If you make it too small, you can also make it bigger, I suppose. If you wish, you can resize it, I guess is the most important. And again, the default now is to put it above, but you still have properties, so that'll let you move where the visualization's legend shows up. It's just the default has changed. A couple of new visualizations, a waterfall visualization and a KPI visualization. I've got a plan here to show you the KPI visualization as part of our demo. And then finally, some changes to crosstabs and tables. They behave more like we expect them to, I guess. There's a certain Excelness that we expect out of them, like being able to resize an individual column or an individual row, being able to select a column or select a row to do things like text formatting. And that's the kind of stuff they've done. They've even made it now available where after I've got a table or a crosstab up, I can drag new data into it without having to go into the expanded mode of the visualization. And it has null suppression now. So those are the dashboard things. Let's take a look at a few of those in action. I'm going to close this dashboard just because in preparation for today, I created a dashboard that had just some presets for doing some examples for you. So let's start with the forecast. So here is a visualization by day, and as I remember right, I filtered it, I believe, to just show some data. Yes, so I'm only showing data from 2018 forward in here. Now, it's very important to keep in mind, guys, that when you use the forecasting tool, it's forecasting based on the data visible in the visualization. In other words, because I omitted the 2017 and before data, it will not be taken into account in the forecast algorithm. So the forecast algorithm is focused on the data being presented. It's not focused on all the data in the source, which I think could be a good thing because sometimes my source has a very large amount of data, and I feel I would want to limit it. Another note to note, I guess, is seasonality. So when you're working with seasonality and you want the forecasting algorithm to leverage the seasonality, make sure you include enough data in your visualization to illustrate the seasonality, especially if you are going to use the automatic setting for that. So I've got Time doesn't have to be individual days. It can be other kinds of time. I just chose days for my example. And a measure. And I'm an end user, and I'd like to see a forecast, please and thank you. I'll just click on this new button, forecast. I can do this in view mode or edit mode. I'm only in edit mode, so I could expand the visualization for you. You see I get a panel where forecasting is turned off. I will simply turn it on. It will go ahead and do a forecast, but I could also change the number of forecast periods, and you see I get some nice help. This is my ignore a period or two because maybe they're not indicative or they're incomplete. Here's where I can set my confidence levels. There's only 3. 95 is the default, 99 and 90. More restrictive, less restrictive, I guess, than the default. And then this notion of seasonality. Auto is the default setting, and so you might have noticed there is seasonality in my data. There is absolutely a big spike in the first part of the year that I would expect my forecast to show me. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to close this up and make a little more space. So there's my forecast. I'm going to zoom in, and I'm going to pan over so I can see more of the forecasted area. Now, you see it does show a spike in the beginning of the year, just like it should if it's respecting seasonality. And if I put my cursor over the point, I can tell, as you can see with the dashed line, that it's a forecast. I see the upper and lower bound. And remember the setting 95%? That 95% says the algorithm has set an upper and lower boundary such that there is a 95% confidence that the actual number will be in that range, and that the most likely number is the actual forecasted number. So that came out 949-ish. If we go back in time just to see what date was that, that was round about the 28th of January. So if I go back and look around the 28th of January, too far, maybe it's this one. No, yeah, it is. So that was at 967. And what did it calculate here as the likelihood? 949. So you see, it's not just a copy forward kind of thing, right? It's actually based on a collection of algorithms that are assessed, and the one that returns the best result for the data is the one whose points are displayed. So that's forecasting. 2 more things I'll show you relative to forecasting. If I were to expand this guy and not only plot service requests, but also plot days to resolution, I will get 2 forecasts, one for each of those lines. So hard to see in this compact area, but you see I get a forecast for both. So it's not limited to just one measure. In my example, it was easy to see it with one measure, but as you can see, I could do it with 2. So that's part 1 of the last couple things I wanted to show you. If I zoom in, you'll see it better. Clearly, I should have used 2 different axes, but that's a whole different discussion. The other thing I'm going to do, and I can only do this in edit mode, is I'm going to click on the data tray tab. And one of the things in the data tray will be the statistical details of the forecasting. So you see, since it's forecasting service requests and days to resolution, it's actually possible that it might have picked one algorithm for service requests and a different algorithm might have produced a better result for days to resolution. The algorithms will here under model, so it used an additive model for both of those, but it may not have. Here are some accuracy measures that it leveraged to note that this was the best model in the end to present. Here is some information about seasonality. So it determined there was a yearly seasonal period based on the data. Remember, because we left that set to automatic. So it's not 100% faith. Trust me, I calculated some things and used them. You can actually see a bunch of the details about the model that it leveraged as it created the forecast. You don't get the data tray in view mode. You only get the data tray in edit mode. So that's something to keep in mind. All right, that's forecasting. Let's talk about custom visualizations. So here I have a dashboard partly done. And what I'd like to do is craft my own visualization. Now, again, I'm not going to show you how to code from scratch a visualization, but I am just going to talk you through a couple things. First of all, you have some software to install. You have to install some software that will allow you to both prototype a visualization as well as ultimately package it up and upload it to Cognos. The development environment then allows you to develop and type in code into some specific and well-documented files. There's some XML that describes the data slots that will appear in Cognos. So this particular visualization has a category, X position, Y position, and color data slot. What do I mean by a data slot? When you expand a visualization, these entries here, these are called data slots. So you define the data slots for your visualization in one file, for example. And again, I'm not going to jump you into the code here. If I go into renderer, this is the main code. This is where the JavaScript all lives, right? And this is JavaScript I typed in. And there are a whole lot of JavaScript based visualization libraries available on the web. I think D3 is the one that we talk about the most, but there's others. You can copy that code, paste it into this main TS. You'll need to do a couple of small coding changes to conform to what Cognos needs for that code, but not many, to be perfectly honest. So you don't have to code from scratch. If you found a D3 or another JavaScript-based visualization you want to incorporate into Cognos, it's actually quite straightforward. But you do it you're working in code. So this is not necessarily for a non-coder to do. But you do all that work. You then do a package task, which is just a command package. And then it builds you a zip file. So that's where I'm going to pick up now and use this new visualization. Now, there's a couple of ways you can upload it. You can actually upload it right here in a dashboard under this new custom tab. And you see you can add a custom visual here. And you see I've already uploaded that one. You can also do it by going to Manage, Customization, and going to Custom Visuals. And you see that same custom scatter that we were just chatting about is here. And you see you can upload a new one. You can also delete them if you no longer need them. You can download their definition and use them as the starting point for another custom visualization. You could do an update, which is going to let you take your changed code and replace what's there. And you can set properties, which then, of course, can control who gets to use a custom visualization you've created if you wish to limit the use of any particular visualization. So you can manage them here centrally, but you could also, if you wish, and you have the proper manage visualizations access, new capability, you'll see that on another slide in a minute. You can also manage them from here. I'm going to just tap the custom scatter visualization. So do you recall in the XML, I said categories, X position, Y position, color were the slots? Here they are, exactly as they were typed in. They're set to required, these three, so no visualization till I fill them in. I'm going to go ahead and drop neighborhood into my categories. My X position will be days to resolution. My Y position will be service requests, and I should get a scatter plot now. And I'm going to go ahead and collapse that. Now, while we're here, let me show you that legend improvement I was talking about. So first of all, notice it's at the top. Second, notice that I can expand if I wish, or collapse if I wish, the area that the legend takes up. So that's that legend enhancement that I was chatting about. Now, what is, I think, the pièce de résistance as far as a custom visualization is this. It's a full-fledged visualization. It's going to work the very same way that the built-in visualizations do as far as interactions go. So notice I have a couple of prompts down here. I have my case status, and I have a request reason prompt. And I'm going to make a couple of quick changes there. And I'm going to hit apply on both of these. And what you're going to find is that both charts, both the built-in charts and the custom visualization I just uploaded, are interacting. So they become full citizens, these custom visualizations you write, once you've added them to the world. So they're not crippled in any way. They're a bona fide IBM fully functioning visualization, even if they began life as an externally developed D3, for example, visualization. So that's custom visualizations. As far as improvements to crosstabs, just quickly here I have a crosstab. Used to be if I wanted to add more to it, I had to expand it. Now I can just go over here, for example, and I could add a request type to by just dragging it in. And it will just update. And then if I click on close, notice it selects the whole column. And then if I right click on it, I get some text formatting. And if I click here on the row, I get the same thing. So I can format text-wise, not necessarily value-wise things, including for a new one which I like, which is wrap text. So I could drag this row and expand it, right? And you see how it actually expanded it independent of the other rows to a certain extent, but not 100%. But I could also, for just my selected row, I could go to the text and I could do wrap text. And what I did there, by the way, was right-click to get the toolbar. So it wrapped to this text. Now, it didn't wrap everybody because everybody wasn't selected, right? So I could, right-click on, first I have to select them, I guess. So I could select this and then right-click and choose. And now I could wrap this guy if I want. Or independently, I could left justify everybody or middle justify, right? So, the formatting is by selection. And that selection works both on a column basis and on a row basis. So, and I can resize width-wise as well as vertically if I wish. So a lot of improvements in terms of look and feel control, some formatting control, and just natural gestures like drag and drop data into my crosstab. And a lot of these also are in the table visualization. And then finally, from a dashboard's perspective, let's look at KPIs. So normally I would, in a dashboard class, be talking to people about these types of summary objects as KPIs. But really a KPI is a visualization that compares two measures, revenue versus planned revenue. And so there's a new visualization specifically to do that. I'm going to go to the list of visualizations. They're alphabetized, so I'm going to find the Ks. I'll tap KPI, and I'm going to drag in from my data actually I'm going to go just to some sample data here. I'm just going to grab my revenue, and that's my base value. And then I'm going to grab my planned revenue as my target value. And then because I want what they call a spark line, I'm going to add time to, which won't be visible here per se, but will be when I enable the spark line feature. So I'm just going to drag year here. Oh, it looks like the spark line feature is enabled by default. Always be sure you sort your time, just in case. So this is more of a KPI. There's my actual revenue, which, by the way, I can format. It's interesting to me that the planned revenue is abbreviated, but the revenue is not. But I can format those two independently. And so I'll just go here to currency and abbreviate. And there you go. That should just have done it. Yeah, and there's this guy probably needs to be currency. I'm not sure why he isn't, but I'm just going to go to currency and abbreviate him, and I think, oh, nope, I didn't get a $sign, so it must be that I have to set my currency. Let's, yep, that did it. So I get a percent difference. I get color coding based on a default. I can change this. Sometimes green's good, low is good, sometimes high is good, so you might have to flip your colors a bit, all in the properties. So I can I've got this range, min and max. I've got restore ranges if I change them. I got my switcheroo button to reverse the colors. I can set different colors. I don't have to stick with green and red. You might have noticed the arrow here. I actually have options. There's an indicator shape. I don't have to go. I could go with smiley and frowny faces if I wish. The choice is mine. The spark line here is it's just showing you the change in values over time is the deal. So I just have to, is that in chart? It's all new. There it is. So under chart, show spark line, that was enabled by default. Will only work if you put time in that slot. Remember that extra slot? So if you put time in this time slot, you'll have this option to turn on the spark line if you would like to show a trend over time. So new KPI widget in addition to the new waterfall widget. And those are your dashboard change highlights. Let's scoot back over to the slides and talk quickly about stories. I'm not going to do any demos here. You can now export a story to PDF, giving you another way to distribute your story. When you export a story to PDF, it shows each scene in your story on a page in the PDF, and it shows the scene as it would appear if the entire scene had played. So be sure you don't have all of your objects disappearing at the end of a scene, because when you export it to PDF, they'll not be visible, right? Because it's the end of the scene that gets exported. When you do a new scene entry, when you add a scene to a story, those templates have multi-purpose widgets now, as opposed to a text widget and only a text widget. Now there's drag stuff here type widget, just to make creating a new scene a little bit easier. And then finally, exact entry and exit time. So before you dragged your timeline swim lanes to a time, but you didn't get to type in a time. I wanted it exactly 2.5 seconds. Well, now you can. So those are the improvements to stories in the 11.1.4 release. Explorations have gotten a couple of new things. First of all, those two new visualizations that were available in dashboards are also available in explorations and stories. The other two changes, though, are improvements to the starting points page and a much better, well, I won't say better because the other one worked good, but improvements to comparing two visualizations. So in terms of improvements to the starting points page, when you create a new visualization, you will not see a relationship diagram. What you'll see is a where do you want to start dialog, where you can search for data that you would like to focus on. You could try one of the options that were picked. Those are going to generally be measures. And or you could actually have show me what you think is most important Cognos, a stop, show me anything option. Kind of like the I feel lucky in Google, I guess. Once you pick a starting point, then you will get your relationship diagram just like you're used to. Again, though, the screen is slightly redesigned. We'll take a gander at that. And then this improved experience for comparisons. So comparing two visualizations, the same data being plotted but different filters is very common for what folks want to do. Used to be very manual. Now there's a dialogue. When you say to do a comparison, now there's actually a bunch of suggested comparisons that you might take advantage of, along with the ability to manually do the comparisons that you need. So those are the visualization improvements. Let's just take a quick look at those. The best way, I think, is to start a new exploration. I'll just create an exploration from this data set. Normally what I would expect is a relationship diagram. As you can see, that's not what I'm getting. Now I could just say show me the revenue as my focal point and show me all of the items related to it, and let me pick the threshold for the degree of influence any one of those guys have. And that this slider was introduced in release 3. They just moved it down to the bottom of the diagram in release 4. There's also a way to edit the diagram by showing secondary relationships. Again, in 11.1.3 that was introduced. It's just in a different place in 11.1.4. In 11.1, the notion of suggested starting points, suggested visualizations to get going, required that you clicked on something in the diagram for them to come up, and they came up on the left. Now they come up on the right, and you get the focal point ones immediately. You don't have to click anything. You can always click something though, and it will change those suggested starting points for you. And so they're in a different spot, and they're more automatic. You don't actually have to click anything to get suggested starting points. Whenever you start with an item as your focal point, the focal point immediately gets some suggested starting points. Okay, so that's one big change. The other big change is in this notion of comparing. I'm going to do a quick new card, and I'm going to do a bar chart. All right, a column chart, pardon me. And I'm going to populate my column chart with some data, for example, product line and customer lifetime value. And what I'd like to, so I get this, and what I'd like to do is, gee, I'd like to see how different groups of my customers compare. So I'm going to go ahead and add a filter here on loyalty status. And I'm going to pick a couple of my loyalty statuses and apply them. Okay. And now maybe I want to compare for this same chart to the other loyalty statuses, see how they differ. In previous releases, I manually did that comparison essentially. Now in the compare button, I get this collection of, well, hey, maybe you want to do this. So maybe you want to create a new chart where you would add a new chart. Maybe you want to duplicate this chart and start the comparison from it. Or, you know what? Because you were using customer lifetime value, maybe you want to compare that with income. Or maybe you just want to, same chart, same stuff, but invert the filters, which, by the way, is exactly what I want to do. So I'm going to select that guy. So the left-hand side will be my original filters. Right-hand side will be all the other loyalty statuses that I didn't pick will have been selected. And then I can do my comparison. So the new feature is those comparison suggestions that help to get you into the right comparison as fast as possible. So those are your changes and explorations. Then some changes in dashboards, in data modules, and in reporting. So in reporting, and I don't have any demos of this, I just want you to know what those changes are. Those custom visualizations that we did the example of in a dashboard, well, those are also available in the 11.1 visualization gallery in a report. So those custom visualizations that I build can be leveraged in both a dashboard and a report with the same data slots and the same look and feel and so on. In 11.1.2, we introduced the Jupyter Notebooks to the product, and you were able to embed Jupyter Notebook cells in a dashboard. You can now embed Jupyter Notebook cells in a report. The visualization legend flexibility for the 11.1 visualizations is also part of reports. There's a new font in reports. You'll notice that reports look slightly different. IBM now has a proprietary font called Plex, and that's the new default font in reports. And the one I think I do want to take a quick look at, again, I don't think I'll do a demo because I think you'll get it just from the slide, is, oh, I forgot I had this slide, embed Jupyter Notebook output. So here, if you're a screenshotter, take a screenshot of this if you're interested about how you embed Jupyter Notebook output. It's a new tool under advanced. and then you navigate to the notebook and you pick your cell. Only works in HTML. The one I wanted to be sure to show you, though, is this menu customization. So lots of times we would like to just control the different aspects of a report that a user can leverage. Maybe we don't want them to be able to switch to prompt pages or to go and look at queries when they're editing a report. Maybe we just want them to look at pages, or perhaps classes and conditional formatting are things you'd like to hide. Now, on a role-by-role basis, you can use the features customization, and when you expand under features reporting and you expand collections, you can disable components of the navigation in a report so that you can hide, because by default, everybody sees everything. If they have access to edit reports, they can see all of the navigation. You can hide pieces of the navigation from a user on a role-by-role basis using role customization. All right, data modules also have a bunch of interesting changes. Used to be, in previous releases, when I did a relationship in a data module, it was an equal relationship. In other words, when I picked two columns, left side, right side, product ID, the condition was product ID from left side equals product ID from right side. I have more options now. I have some more join optimization filters that I can use in one-to-many and in one-to-one relationships now. The way I define data groups on numeric data has been enhanced so that I could define them as a numeric item, or I could treat the number as text and define those groups as though they were text items. So it gives me access to both UIs for defining groups. You can turn on automatic validation, so it validates as you go. Properties are now available through a properties button. So data modules was the only tool that didn't have a properties button in it. When you were developing, now it has a properties button in the top right. And multi-tenant users have some additional flexibility when it comes to relative time and the relative time features that were introduced in data modules. So I've got some slides on those. And again, I don't have demos of these because I knew I would run out of time, and I know I have. And I do want to get to at least a couple of questions. But I do want to show you some of the features and functions. So here's the notion of not everything is an equals anymore in your join matching columns. Once you've matched the columns, you click on the bottom right on the matched columns list, and then you can change from the default of equals to your less than and greater than kinds of options, very much like you could in Framework Manager. The join optimization is on the bottom left of the relationship screen. It's in the cardinality section, and you'll notice a unique values in a subquery and a unique or range of values option has been added to the previously available ones. Those are very well described in the documentation for data modules, which again is searchable and downloadable as a PDF online, and effectively are all about trying to speed up your joins of very large collections of data by using one side's values to pre-filter the other side before the join is executed. It's just that now they're using a couple of other techniques in the SQL when you enable optimization. And it used to be that it only worked for one-to-many or many-to-one cardinalities. Now it actually, a couple of them will now apply, even in one-to-one cardinalities. Again, if I have a numeric column, I can treat it as a number, or I can treat it as though it were characters when I create data groups. So there's a create a data group link here that switches the style when you're working with numeric data. You'll start out in numeric and you can click and go over to text, or you can click it and go back from text to numeric. And then lastly, some administration changes. There are some new capabilities. The most important one, I think, for most of us is that I can now dictate for dashboards and stories who is a creator and who is a user. So in previous releases, I had to use role customization in order to dictate this. You can create, you can only use and interact. differentiator. I actually had to customize the UI for certain roles and do it that way. No longer do I need to do that. There's actually a capability, actually technically on Dashboard, a sub capability called Create Edit. Now, the interesting thing here is most of us, when we're going to work with capabilities, would go to launch the administration console and then change the capability mappings there. For these new capabilities, both the ones about managing and developing visualization capabilities and this new sub capability for dashboards, you get to by clicking Manage, People, and then you go to Capabilities there. You will not find these capabilities in the administration console. Okay. Global parameters can now be set to default values globally, as opposed to always having to set default values on a role-by-role basis. If you own information distribution licenses, you now own analytic viewer licenses. They've changed the name and added a new capability to interact with dashboards. In addition to being able to pick up pre-run report outputs, you can now also open and interact with dashboards with that same viewer. The weather company and IBM company has now got a data server entry there, and there's a couple of changes for Salesforce and Presto. And I know I'm probably technically out of time, but I do want to try to answer one or two questions. Again, for you screenshotters, here is information about those capabilities and how they work. And from a questions perspective, let's see. What are the models used in a dashboard forecast? Well, that one I can answer quickly. I don't know. I know there are 9, and I know that there is documentation out there in the dashboard documentation. They try to apply all 9. The one with the highest accuracy will be the one that's selected. And if 2 models have the same accuracy, what the product manager has told me is the one with the lowest number of parameters required for the algorithm to work is the one that will win. That's the one that will be selected. But in terms of the details of exactly what models are being used, please take a look at the documentation, but even it may not give you that much in terms of specifics. What is the automatic number of periods that will get forecasted in a forecast visualization? So I did set it to auto. You can set it forecast 10 periods, forecast 18 periods. With it set to auto, it's going to look at the data that's available in the visualization, and it's going to give you 20% more than what's there. Can I fit in another quickly? How many maintenance notifications can I have enabled? Exactly 1 at the moment. So there's not multiple keywords. There's not a way right now for you to enter more than 1. However, IBM is aware of how important people see this ability. People have really embraced this notion of being able to put out alerts, and so they want to be able to put out 2 or 3 alerts. So IBM is definitely aware that people are interested in that, but I don't have any kind of timing on when that might be added. It's 1 right now. Oh, and there's a bunch of upgrade questions out here I see. So I will say in short, but I'll answer the rest of the questions as well as those in detail later. In short, upgrading, I have upgraded in place, and I have upgraded by doing new installs, uninstall, reinstall, both. The upgrades in place have worked terrific. So has new installs. I haven't found any gotchas, but I'll answer your specific upgrade questions off the air. I apologize for running out of time yet again, but thank you so very much for being with me today. Again, just a quick reminder of the kinds of things that LPA might be able to help you with. Please keep us in mind. We would be proud to earn your business. And it remains for me to say thank you very, very much for joining me on a webinar chock full of information about Cognos Analytics 11.1.4. Thank you so much, and bye-bye.